I'm having trouble. I'm trying to apply for a license, but the state keeps changing the forms every other day on me. Or they have new requirements, and each city is a little different than the other city, and their processes are different. So.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another Connect and Protect segment. This is my educational series that I'm now putting on YouTube, and our first one, which if you can look back at, was regarding liquor liability, and we had our guest Gary Linder on, and it went really well, so I decided to do it again. But today we have Craig Miller, and Craig Miller is going to talk about liquor training. Craig is with ALIC, Arizona Liquor Industry Consultants, and they do a whole spectrum of things. Craig, I'm going to let you just kind of give them a summary or a background of all the things that you and your office is able to do for people.
I love it. Well, good morning, and thank you, Mr. DELO, for having me on today. Appreciate it. Yeah, well, I'm with Arizona Liquor Industry Consultants. It's a consulting company that was started 30 years ago by Randy Nations. Back then, Highway Patrol DPS had a squad of liquor guys that worked hand in hand with the Arizona Department of Liquor. So Randy was DPS's version of their expert in Title IV liquor laws, and then when he transitioned into retiring, he started this company because there was a need. Back then, they didn't have a company or companies or even programs to train bartenders, so he had bar owners reach out to him and say, Randy, we're having problems. I'd like to find somewhere to train my employees, but there's nowhere out there to do it.
Yeah.
And the laws keep changing, and the enforcement strategies keep changing, and there's rules. So Randy started going in and talking to employees. Well, then after he's talking to bartenders and servers and clerks, the bar owners come and say, Randy, I'm having trouble. I'm trying to apply for a license, but the state keeps changing the forms every other day on me. Or they have new requirements, and each city is a little different than the other city, and their processes are different. So Randy was able to find those issues and create a company that kind of addressed and focused on them. And then when I retired from the Department of Liquor in 2016, I joined ALIC as a partner, and then we brought in some of the best trainers in the country. We got Kevin Grosjean, who actually came to Arizona from St. Louis, worked as a high-volume bartender, managed and owned high-volume restaurants, high-end restaurants. And then he managed different places. And when I was joining ALIC, I remember talking to Kevin, say, hey, we're gonna redo and revamp training programs, and so we brought him on board. And then Buzz, formerly Mesa PD, then with the Department of Liquor, and he came on board to teach some of our basic and management classes with us. And because we had Kevin and Buzz together, we were able to then spend time and actually write a program for in-house security training with the help of you.
Yeah.
So we got, and a lot of it was, a lot of these places were hiring doormen. And it was some kid who came to go to college, and he was in good shape. Maybe he was on the wrestling team or wearing an affliction shirt. And
right.
He said, hey, this is what I want to do. And so they would transition him into security, but there was really no training programs out there. So we were able to develop that. And since then, Scottsdale PD and Tempe PD have both kind of formulated classes that they also teach, which is huge for the industry, kind of like their perception and what they require in their areas to comply with their guidelines and rules.
So it's not just all the training. You guys also help with liquor license applications. You help with use permits. You do spot checks still?
We do spot checks. That's a whole long story, but we'll go into that. We do help with applications. We broker liquor licenses because there's certain licenses that are quota licenses, treated as real property. And the state doesn't issue them anymore, so we got to find somebody with one for sale, send it through an escrow company, make sure they're protected, and then we can help apply.
Okay.
Use permits, different cities are different. Some of them are tougher than others. Like Phoenix has now come up with this temporary use permit if you want to do an event in a parking lot. They call it temporary, but it's good for 2 years.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't help because now you're trying to do a temporary event in a parking lot. Yet now they send you for a use permit hearing, and you have to send out these flyers to everybody living. Well, now they're notifying everybody this thing's going to be good for 36 months or 24 months. which really it's only going to be used one night.
And for one night,
So
yeah.
it's kind of knowing those hurdles and leaps to kind of jump through.
Well, we'll get into a lot of this sort of stuff. And then just you personally, your background, you worked for the Department of Liquor for how many, 19 years?
I started there in 96, 97. I retired in 2016.
Okay. And then prior to that, you were a officer?
I was a police officer in the thriving metropolis of Miami, Arizona, and then before that, the town of Pima in Arizona.
It seems like everybody names, if it's a state that doesn't actually have Miami, like Florida, everybody names like places where nothing goes on Miami. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your background, your experience. I got some specific questions that I get asked all the time, which I would love for to just live on this channel and have the expert, Craig, just kind of answer them. So. Number one, this is probably a rhetorical question because I think most people, understand the answer is yes, it is important. But I want to get from your perspective, based on what you've seen and your experience, how important is it to train your employees on, liquor, servants, liquor safety, and is it a bit different out here due to laws that you know of in other states?
Training is very important for your employees. In fact, the statutes and the rules indicate that it's the owner's responsibility to make sure his employees are knowledgeable in the liquor laws. And yeah, the owner could pay his employees to go spend 8 hours at the Arizona Law Library, and then you'd be even more confused just because the structure of our statutes, and they adjust and change things every year. So you might have to look in 4 different sections just to find an answer to the one question you have in our statutes. So it does make that tough, but using an approved Title IV trainer, the state of Arizona approves those who create a lesson plan and address all the issues that they feel are important to be covered in the training. We probably have probably do the most training of any of the companies out there. With our trainers, it is ultimately important for every bar owner, every store owner to have their employees trained in the laws, because I have seen where police agencies or the Department of Liquor come in and do an inspection, and they can ask the employees questions about specific Title IV laws, and if they don't know the answers, they can mark in there or create an administrative violation for failure to know Title IV. Which that's the least of my worries. It's more so with the civil liability and protecting the business they work at, having said training. They should not only attend an approved liquor training class, but you need to then have policies and procedure manuals and make sure the employees understand what your policies are compared to state law, because it's in some avenues, it's a good idea to be more restrictive than the state law.
But it's not required by Arizona to have your employees trained, is it? There's
no requirement to have them trained. They just have to be knowledgeable. It kind of throws in a problem how they become knowledgeable if they're not trained. And reading the books on their own aren't always a good option. And there's different types of training. There's in-person training. They're doing some Zoom training now, and there's some online versions. I have, I'm not a fan of the online. Yes, it's convenient. But I've talked to people after they've done the online training, and they, in some cases, I think they know less about liquor laws after doing online than they did before.
It can be confusing, right?
It's confusing. There's no way to ask a question and get an immediate answer for whatever questions you have. So there's a little difference between in-person and online, because on the online versions you can actually be intoxicated and still take the course. We're very restrictive. If you show up intoxicated, you're not taking our class. If you cause a disruption, you're not taking our class, because we're spending our time there to make sure the clients and the people who work in this industry understand the importance of knowing those laws, because that's where it covers liability, covers what types of IDs you can accept, the amounts you can serve to somebody at one time, and all those things that add to the liability or cause them insurance problems down the road.
1,000%. And within an organization, what employees should be trained? Is this everybody? Is this just bartenders? Is it servers? Is it, just dumbing it down so people understand?
Obviously bartenders and servers, because they're doing that one-on-one. That's where the money's exchanging hands with the client for the alcohol. But managers, owners, anybody in the front of the house, or anybody who's working in the front of the house. A lot of people make that mistake and they don't train their hosts and hostesses. That's their first line of defense. It's much like a security guard. That's the first person who's going to have contact with the guy to determine his intoxication level. It's the first person who, they're interviewing the entire party on, determine their intoxication level. And without training them, because that's usually a lot younger of your staff members.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get some of these young kids that aren't even used to being around anybody that even drink, so they're not picking up on those cues. And it's, putting them through the class so they understand what they're going to see and give them the tools to be able to identify that. And I'm not expecting the hostess to be like, sir, you can't come in, you're too drunk, blah, blah, and have any issues. But she needs to identify those signs and symptoms, then so she can contact management, have management come in and have a discussion with them.
How old do you have to be to serve alcohol in the state of Arizona?
18 years of age to serve alcohol.
18. Wow. Did they just change that law, didn't they?
Yeah, it used to be 19.
Okay.
Then they dropped it down to 18. And the theory was it was kind of hard finding enough people to work in restaurants that are able to serve. The crowd was, or the minimum age or medium age was getting younger and younger.
So you can serve, but you can't drink.
You can't drink till you're 21.
Yeah.
But you can start serving, selling, and dispensing at the age of 18.
So let's talk about that. So that was a law that had just recently changed. How difficult is it for a bar restaurant to keep up with all the reoccurring laws, which you and I sit on we sit in a committee together and we watch all these things progress and turn. So how hard is it for an establishment to keep up with that, let alone for you and your organization yourself that's in there trying to help change laws for the betterment of these establishments, i.e. your clients?
It's crazy that the Title IV basic and management certificates are good for 3 years.
Yeah.
But yet we go in every year and we keep changing the laws.
Yeah.
I mean, just like with some of the groups out there in this year trying to make the laws more lax and accept more types of IDs out there. So now we got to bring those into the training programs. And it's not like you can just call those companies and get copies of their IDs to show everybody so they can get them in their hands.
Yeah.
So it does take a little bit of research so we can do the proper slides and let them know where to look on those IDs. The certificates are good for 3 years. We're changing the law every year. I really like to see people come more often than once every 3 years so they can stay up to date. And to be honest with you, I think annually is a good idea to send them, especially because you're bouncing around. You maybe were working as a server before, and then now you've transitioned into bartender. Yeah, it's the same laws, but you're dealing with maybe a little bit different issue as a bartender than you were as a server, because you're mixing the drink. The sizes are going to matter a little more to you. I don't know that the server realizes exactly what all types of beer glasses go into the different types of beer, but as a bartender, you're going to know a little more of that. Or, eventually if you're serving long enough, you know. But that's more specifics for the bars. And, 50 ounces is our service amount for beer. You can serve for one person at one time a 50-ounce mug of beer. Not a huge deal if it's one of those low alcohol percentage beers, 3.5% to 4%. I could probably drink 50 ounces of beer and not have a problem. But when you start moving to some of these specialty beers that they're coming out with now, these real high ABV beers, you put somebody in a 13% alcohol beer and you give them 50 ounces compared to the guy you're giving 3.5% alcohol, 50 ounces. There's a huge difference, and you're not sure at what level are they going to start showing obvious signs of intoxication. Is it going to be from the first 50 ounces or the second? And that's where they need to kind of, just because you give it to them and walk away, you still got to pay attention to what they're doing.
You still owe them. You own them from the minute that you serve them. From the moment
they walk in.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest types of fines that bars, nightclubs, restaurants get? How much are these fines? What do you see most prevalent?
Historically, the department, in the 30 years I've been around, they've always been concerned about underage drinking, over service, violent fights, problems at the bars. And now they're throwing in wrong way drivers, but that really flows it right into the over service. And then, those are their top four. In my opinion, it's really three issues. And that's where they really focus a lot of their efforts, but anything's up for grabs.
What are some of what's the monetary value on some of those fines?
Underage, there's always been a program. It's the very first time you have an issue and you only got 1 or 2 underage kids, and you can get a reduced fine. So instead of being $1,500 per violation, you might be paying $750 per violation or whatever. Bring it down. But it can be up to $3,000 per occurrence. And anytime you have one violation, you typically have two. And there are some I'll call them chicken shit laws, right? There's one that says, hey, if you violate any other section, you're also guilty of this one.
Yeah.
So, they can just trump on and add on those charges if they want. There's some bad laws in there,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and if they're used in the wrong way, they're a problem. But fortunately, the department's always been really good about playing fair, being reasonable, and
Listening
and doing it the right way.
No.
The liquor industry is the second most regulated industry in Arizona, banking being number one.
Wow.
So not only do you have the state, you have the feds looking at it, you have locals, you have the county, and it's a concern for everyone.
Interesting. So what are the main types of licenses? You don't have to go through all of them, but what are the main types of licenses that are out there? What's the gold standard? Like, what's the most valuable license?
Yeah. So when we look at alcohol, there's two channels, right? There's on-premise bars and restaurants, and then there's off-premise grocery stores and convenience stores. We've really done a great job of confusing that by now letting restaurants lease privileges to sell mixed drinks to go, or lease privileges to sell bottles to go. And we've really caused a problem because, restaurant licenses, we allowed them to be within 300 feet of a church or school all these years. But we didn't do that with bars and liquor stores because you don't want people, maybe having access to bottled alcohol they could take onto premises or, vice versa. Not vice versa, or grab it from a store or a bar and bring it on, or have them going over there.
Have a real religious
But now you
experience.
can have a restaurant sharing a common wall with a store, and they can sell alcohol to go, and they can sell mixed drinks to go. So we just kind of ignored Statute 207, which talked about the distance between a bar or a store and a school. And at schools, it's only considered for K through 12.
Yeah.
So you have the on-premise, off-premise.
Okay.
Off-premise, your main ones are your beer and wine stores, which is like every convenience store you go to that has just beer and wine.
Okay.
And then you have the liquor stores, which they can sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits set up to go. And that would be your Fry's, your big box stores that have the Series 9 licenses selling to go. Trevor's would be a good example, although one of them they have a 12, I believe, and a 7. So, you'd have to kind of get into specific store by store, or location by location. That liquor store license, pre-pandemic, it had been 250, then it moved up to around 450, and then it stayed kind of bouncing around 500,000. Well, during pandemic, it just started shooting up to where they were selling for $1.3 million.
Holy cow.
So it's almost impossible for the independent owner, the new small neighborhood liquor stores are a thing of the past when we start seeing those licenses.
Big price tag just to get a license. Yeah.
And we can attribute that to the growth in Arizona because we need more licenses because there's more people here. But the state doesn't just issue more liquor store licenses. It's set to be you can get one every year if there's an increase in 10,000 people in that population for that specific county.
Is that the same with like a nightclub license and restaurant
license?
Same
for Series 6, which is the bar license, and the Series 7. 7 was reduced to one for every 5,000 increase in people. But the other licenses you can go get issued from the state. It's only the quota licenses, the 9s, the 7s, and the 6s that the state doesn't issue anymore, that then you have to find an individual with one, purchase it, and have it transferred to your business and your
So those are the 3
group.
quota licenses. Gotcha.
Yep. And that Series 9, like I said, was 1.3 million. It's kind of come down a little bit, but you're still pushing upwards of $1 million. That Series 6 license is about $250,000 for Maricopa County.
Wow.
And that's before you even open a bar.
And this used to be in the 90s.
$250,000 just for that piece of paper. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And those prices fluctuate. The Series 7 beer and wine bar is staying pretty steady at right around $50,000.
Okay.
And it ebbs and flows over the years. I've seen it as low as $12,000, $8,000, $18,000, and then in the last few years it's really bumped up.
What's the theory on that? Just serving beer and wine and not having, the harder alcohol. I mean, isn't alcohol or not really?
Yes. I mean, you'll hear people talk about, liquor before, stay in the clear.
Yeah,
I don't know how it's stuff works. It's still all ethanol.
Yeah.
And it's based on the amount of ethanol,
that you serve.
Yeah, your alcohol by volume and then your blood alcohol level.
Yeah.
So I don't know, if you're drinking beer that's 10%, but you're drinking whiskey that's 30%, 38% alcohol by volume, you're going to obviously get more alcohol in your system drinking the higher number.
So they want you to pay more for the license to be able to serve the more potent stuff, really, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, well, and the tax rate's a lot
rate.
higher on distilled spirits versus beer. And then wine is closer to the beer side than it is the spirits.
Okay.
And there's always some discussion, like there's some stuff out there right now to reduce the tax rate for ready to drink, the basically individual flavored cocktails.
Airplane bottles. What are some things that places should understand before wanting to do a special event on their premise?
Oh.
How much work does it take? Is it worth it?
And special events were huge the last couple months with, the WM Phoenix Open is the biggest thing in Arizona, so everybody's doing events around it.
Yeah.
And then for the people who didn't have tickets and couldn't get into the WM, they had another little thing called the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the overflow for the WM Open. To be honest with you, that's how it worked this year. And so there's events all the way around that. So you have your regular bar, and you may want to do an event out in your parking lot because there's that many extra people in town, so you need the extra floor space. So there's two ways to do it. You take your regular license, you can do an temporary extension of premises.
Yeah.
You got to get permission from the local governing body, then from the state, and then it's still your normal business operating in that extended.
You get permission from your insurance company.
You also need to get insurance or approval from your insurance company before you do this.
Yeah.
But that's your product. And, it's tough. We ran into all these people doing these huge events or doing extensions of premises and knowing you're going to have extra crowds there, so they ordered extra alcohol in. Then at the end of it, they end up having extra alcohol. Well, we know that some stuff can go bad, and you really need to sit on, an extra $30,000 worth of booze. But unfortunately, you can't return alcohol. If you're operating on a regular license and you over-order, you're
stuck with it.
You're stuck with it. You can't return it just because you over-ordered. Now, there are times you can return it. If there was a mistake in your order and it was a legitimate, honest mistake, or the product's bad, or the government says, hey, that's illegal, you can't sell it anymore, then you can return it.
Yeah.
But with a special event license, you can return the product after use.
Okay.
Because it's a one-day temporary license. They issue those to nonprofit 501c3, 4, 6, 7s. And then the local governing bodies can also qualify for special event license. So your city, your county, the state can qualify for special event licenses. If it's a special event license, it's going to happen within the four walls of your bar.
Yeah.
Because you've already been authorized to sell, serve, and dispense alcohol in that location. If you want to get a special event license, you could turn your license off for the day, have that nonprofit group apply and get a license in just your four walls. All you have to do is go to the state of Arizona.
Okay.
But if you're going to go out and extend that premises into the parking lot or make your service area larger outside of what you already approved, now you got to get local governing body approval. Then you get state before you can hold your events. So if it's a special event in an unlicensed area, local governing body has to approve it first. And that makes sense because that's, an area that, you're driving down the street, now you got people serving beer out there, the local governing body should be aware of that. But if it's somewhere that's already licensed, like a golf course or a concert venue or even a restaurant, you can carve out half of it and just do a special event inside there. Really, the only difference is you're still selling, serving, dispensing alcohol. It's just the money's going to a nonprofit group instead of in the owner's pocket. And so it gives you a little more freedom. It allows the wholesalers to work more closely with that event because it's not a regular retail licensee, and then they can get behind the certain charitable programs, make their events more successful by either helping them pay for some of the entertainment, the structural costs, the fencing costs, or they can make a donation of alcoholic product to be sold at that special event to help out the charity. And that's one thing I'll tell you about
Clear as mud.
Liquor distributors, manufacturers, wholesalers, and even the retail industry. They're really about supporting great causes, charitable organizations, and that's one thing you can say about the liquor industry is they really are great at supporting amazing causes and supporting our communities. Just like when COVID was going on, they had to start taking care of themselves. They built their own little shops where bartenders and servers could come and pick up food to take home with them.
Yeah, no, they really did support all of those entities. That's great. Just real quick, just for time's sake, what's like, off the top of your head, the craziest event that you've had to, be a part of, And what does that look like to you, you know, from a management standpoint?
Well, there's different types of crazy out there.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, if you talk about just crazy as in it's fun, the crowd's exciting, it's large crowds, you know, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Obviously, the WM Phoenix Open
Yeah.
is probably the premier event and the funnest event we get to be involved in. It's a great organization. They donate so much money to charities in Arizona, but they bring the best golfers to town for the best golf tournament,
Yeah.
and the fans that they come in from all over the world to attend this event. It's
How much alcohol do you think goes through that place in a week? I mean, you see truckloads of stuff come in day after day, I would assume.
yeah, my
And you're out there having to manage it and inventory it, and
we've been lucky to work with the Thunderbirds and help them out in the back of the house in the concession area.
yeah.
It is impressive the volume they go
buy.
through. Yeah, I wish I had the numbers with me to
Yeah.
say there was this many gallons of beer and this many
We'll
gallons of
podcast
vodka.
that. We're going to podcast on that. Moving back to just some educational value here. How big is? Give me kind of a consensus based on what you're seeing out there for people to really look out for. I know they need to look out for all of it, but how big is underage drinking compared to, you know, fake IDs? Which one is a bigger issue? And I know underage would be kind of fake, you know, ideas all in the same breath, but they could also be two separate instances as well.
Underage drinking should be a concern to everybody.
Yeah.
And it needs to be, if you work in this industry, it's always got to be at the forefront of what you're concerned about and what you're looking at in your crowd. What makes underage drinking so easy right now is the quality of the fake IDs.
Yeah.
100%. You know, because if even Arizona just came out recently that we're redesigning our ID, right? And thank God we do that to upgrade security features, to comply with the federal government and traveling mandates.
Right.
But we do need to make changes once in a while, and we do need to upgrade security features because by the time we get that new Arizona license out, somebody in China will already be faking
Figure
it.
out how to
Yeah,
fake it.
figure
Yeah.
out how to make it. And they're adding in the security features into those fake IDs. So it takes a very skilled person to be able to identify. And sometimes you need tools to be able to identify those fake IDs.
Right.
So I like to see when I see somebody checking IDs, I want them to have a flashlight so they can highlight features on it, look for security features. And to be honest with you, you really need a magnifying glass to be
Yeah.
able to get into some of the finer details.
Don't some places have scanners?
They do,
Yeah.
and that's what that you got an issue. You got 40,000, you know, students down there. A big part of them are
Ready to drink.
under 21,
Yeah.
and they're ready to go out and drink. They're finally away from their parents, and they were able to go online and find a fake ID. They were able to order for a couple bucks.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing parents and everybody needs to know is when you order fake IDs, many times they come in pairs. They don't just send you one; they're going to send you two, and they don't really ship them out to you in an envelope that says, "Hey, there's a fake ID in here."
Yeah.
They ship it in a box with a bookmarker, and you got to tear the box apart to find it.
Okay.
Or it's going to be shipped inside of a stuffed animal. So it's kind of crazy the way they get them here.
That's crazy.
And so then that ID, that fake ID, they can read the two-dimensional barcode on the back. It can read the magnetic stripe through most of these scanners. There are a couple companies that do a great job, and they can pick up and identify which ones are the fake
Wow.
IDs. But those are so expensive because you got to update it monthly
Yeah.
because that information is changing updates. So you got to stay in touch. The state fortunately has wrote their statutes in a way that if you follow the rules, look somebody who appears to be under or a youthful appearance.
Thank
I
you.
want
That's
to
my
ensure
next
that
question.
you're not
Yeah.
gonna. I want to make sure you're of age. I asked you
Right.
for ID. I'm going to look at the ID, make sure it appears to be a valid and altered ID that hasn't been defaced. What does that mean? It looks like an Arizona valid license.
Right.
And there are some companies. In fact, Hensley right now is putting out these little booklets that you can open up and see what every state's driver's license looks like, which is a great tool.
Yeah.
Because just like Arizona's changing our ID, other states are changing theirs, and to try to keep up with where they're at, having a book to show you what the
It's a great thing
current
to have on
issue is,
hand.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Every bar should have one of those. That means I need to compare the photo to you.
Right.
Where the point, if the photo's worn off, and I've seen them that are, if you can't tell that that's Dave Delaronzo in that photo,
Can't let him
it's
in.
not a valid form of ID. If I'm like, is that SpongeBob SquarePants or DELO? not a good ID. I need to look at the physical description. Right now, people can gain weight or lose weight, and they can grow a little bit if they got it when they were very young. And I suppose when I get a little older, I'm going to start shrinking a little. So there'll be some differences in there, but you really need to focus on the shape and the structure of the face.
But if there's if they're doing everything, they're looking in the book, they're looking at the ID, they're looking at the person, the picture is clear, but they're still just kind of like,
I don't care if you have that feeling. I would say, what you want to do is you find, in each business is a little different. You might set your policy, okay, everybody 35 and under gets their ID checked, right?
Yeah.
I come in, I don't need to get my ID checked. You come in, they're probably going to demand your ID. Now, it's when you look a little younger than 35, right? You're not documenting this ID or running it through the scanner for any other reason, just to confirm that you checked that ID, to show proof
and
that you
they have a
checked
form
your
on the
ID.
DLC's website, Department of Liquor website, that you fill out.
You can create your own or use their form, which is today's date, Arizona license, boy 129734447.
How many people really do that?
Not too many do the physical logs because it's so time consuming,
right?
And plus now it's in a book. You might not take it, but the next guy through the line might take that book, and now what do they have? They have addresses, driver's license number, date of birth on people. So we need to kind of protect those booklets. The scanners are great because they can read the two-dimensional barcodes, or they can read the magnetic stripe. It takes that information and stores that information off the license in that program. If it reads a two-dimensional barcode, sometimes it'll actually have an image of that license that it reads off that and can store it. The scanner is great because you're storing a copy of that ID. So if the cops come in and they find an underage person, they go up and say, hey, you look young, let me see your ID. And they look at the ID and this is fake.
Yeah.
Right? Did you order alcohol? Yes, I did. Did you show them your ID? Yes, I did. The kid's going to get a ticket for consuming alcohol, purchasing alcohol on underage, and using a fictitious ID or another person's ID to buy alcohol. Then they're going to talk to the bartender. Hey, did you serve him alcohol? Yes. Did you check his ID? Yes, I did. Can you show me proof? And now they either have it in the scanner.
Yeah.
Written in the logbook, photocopied. You can even have a camera that takes a picture of the ID and of the person. Then you can show it to them. Then the kid gets in trouble, and you should get an attaboy from whatever police agency it was for doing your job. If, unfortunately, and I don't necessarily agree with this ID, you could be a great bartender, check that ID, make sure it matches, make sure the ID reasonably appears to be valid and altered, indicates the person's over 21, the license isn't expired, physical description matches. I'd look at your ID, give it back. Now I sell you a beer. If they come in and say that, you could tell them, no, I showed them my ID. And I could say, I checked the ID, and there could be a camera over there showing me checking something. But if it's not showing me that specific ID, they still write me a ticket for failing to follow ID procedures. Even though I did everything.
Yeah.
I did. I think, there's a gap in there. It's kind of like that. I got you. Even though you do everything you can just because you didn't write it down. So that's why you use that scanner, you use that camera, you use that log, because then it takes away that little argument. You don't get a ticket, the kid gets a ticket, and everything.
Take away any and all questions. All right.
Now, here's the deal. If you grab an ID and you're like, I'm just not sure this matches him, or I'm not sure this is real, what we do on that is we refuse the sale, right?
Yeah, right.
It's only those ones, I'm sure this is a real ID, I'm sure this is a real person in front of me, but because DELO looks young, I'm going to put it in the log book. It's your CYA book, cover your ankles book.
Yes, 100%. All right, a few more questions. How can a bar, what's the easiest way for a bar or restaurant to lose their license?
Repeated acts of violence, repeated counts of sales to underage, or one case where they get massive numbers of underage. There was a time I remember going to Tucson, and we popped into a restaurant, and it was just packed full of underage kids. And I can't remember if we wrote 30 or 60 tickets, but when that one went to a hearing, those people ended up losing their lives.
They were done.
Yeah, so it's those kind of extreme cases.
You'd be pretty negligent.
It's huge negligence on the ownership part, or the owners. What I've seen in a lot of those cases, you get a business that's kind of struggling, and you get a promoter comes in and say, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to bring a great crowd in tonight. We're actually bring our own band in tonight, and we'll bring our own security and work the door for you.
Yeah.
And then all you guys have to do is work. Well, that promoter ended up promoting to underage. His doorman purposely let in underage.
Yeah.
And So then when the cops get there and they raid the place, the bar owner's thinking he's doing the right thing because the promoter's bringing security.
Right.
But it's all just a ruse just to have a place to.
We've seen that. Oh my goodness. Okay, to finalize all this, how many hours are we talking as far, and how much money are we talking as far as an investment for a place to have their staff adequately trained, number one, and then number two, where can everybody, find you? How do they sign up? What kind of DELO discount do they get, if any?
Yeah.
So finish off with that.
I love it. So if they want training, we obviously got our website up. You can call the office, Arizona Liquor Industry Consultants. You can call down there, ask for anybody down there. Kevin Grosjean and Buzz Paris are our two main trainers that are out there. If you go on our website, you can pull up and see Kevin's information, contact him directly, send him an email.
Yeah, this will all be on show notes below.
It's all of your clients have access. They can call the office here and they can get a hold of us. They can go on to our website and actually sign up for our scheduled classes that are open.
Yep.
If they want to schedule a private class where our instructors go to your facility and train your staff, basic management, in-house security, we can do that, and you can schedule it either online or by talking with Kevin.
Very cool.
At the office is that probably the best way.
And how long are the classes usually?
Basic is 3 hours, management is 2 hours, and security is 2 hours.
And everybody leaves with a little certificate.
Everybody leaves with a certificate that's good for 3 years, and we're at the point where now, when you get within a couple months of yours expiring, we send you out a notice telling you, hey, your certificate is expiring, give you a list of the follow-up classes that are available.
And you guys are busy, right? You're training a lot of people.
I can tell you Kevin was in Safford yesterday.
Safford, that's in Arizona somewhere.
I believe he was up north earlier in the week.
Yeah.
So yeah, we cover the state of Arizona doing basic and management and security training.
Yeah, and regardless if somebody goes through Craig, through ALIC, or through any of these other trainers, it's just important to get trained. There's just hundreds of thousands of people that work in hospitality that serve liquor and are a part of that,
Some of the added benefits of the training, sometimes they can get a discount on their insurance by showing that everybody's been trained on staff in basic. Your management team's all trained in management. Your security staff is all. It can qualify you for certain discounts, which is amazing. And it's not even necessarily the discounts at the front end. It's at the back end if there is an issue down the road.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the first things when a lawsuit's filed and they notify a retailer, hey, we're filing a lawsuit, some of the first documents they ask for is,
are they trained?
Are they trained?
Yeah.
If they're not trained, well, that takes away a huge part of the argument or a huge part of the defense. The insurance company goes, well, hell, we might as well probably just settle this one.
It just seems pretty logical. You train people in every other industry to do their job. This is just training to do your job. So
and this, we're changing the laws every year, and we expect them to know the laws we change. And there's really no updates. And honestly, a responsible business owner, it's good to have like a quarterly meeting. Document every employee that was there for the quarterly meeting. But on every meeting you have, address those house policies on we don't serve someone showing obvious signs of intoxication. We cut them off. We have them pay their tab. We activate a sober ride home and get them into a safe ride home within 30 minutes. Which could be either an Uber, Lyft, cab, or calling one of their family members to take them home.
Great bullet points.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Craig, thank you for doing this educational video with me. And I know this will live on YouTube and a lot of people will get a lot out of it. And is there anything you want to say before we leave?
I just want to thank DELO, most amazing man in the insurance business. I love what he does. His staff is just absolutely outstanding, and I can't wait to see you around at some of our events and meeting with clients.
He makes my heart flutter. All right. Thank you, everybody. Till next time.